Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good middle of the night for those who don't sleep well. It is Rob Cole and Theo Bosenkamp. On Two Across, we are two friends on opposite sides of the Atlantic, catching up over a crossword. And Theo, I stole your thunder.
Not at all. Never. That would never happen on Two Across, Rob.
No.
My thunder is safe, surely.
Excellent. It's well sheathed.
Well sheathed. If only I had thunder, Rob. I feel distinctly short on thunder today, to be honest. But hey, I think this might lift me out of it. Let's hope so.
Let's hope so.
How are you, man?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Same old, same old. It's been a very busy week, which was surprising. Took me out of the blue. I've had some quiet weeks, and all of a sudden it's remembering what it's like to be in a cauldron of stress, which I don't like. No. Surprisingly, I don't think anyone likes it, but you do forget. I used to obviously work full-time job for somebody where I was employed and had to go to an office for a long time. And the last 2 years I've been working for myself, and that freedom's really nice. But it ebbs and flows, and you have moments of intensity and moments of calmness. But when I used to work for other people, it was sort of moments of intensity all the time. And your whole system gets rigged to work that way. And you don't realize how deleterious it could be to your well-being. But when you're in the ebb and flow life, you see the difference between a week where it's sort of balanced and you can function, and a week where it's not, and then everything starts to go to pot and you start being irritable and all that stuff. Yeah,
I sympathize. More flow than ebb, I would say, for me at the moment, which is kind of a different problem, because then the anxiety creeps in and you're like, I'm not doing enough work, I'm not getting enough work. But I think that's the kind of the curse of the freelance life, isn't it?
Yeah. You definitely have to learn to take the ebbs and flows as they go and not get too high or low, not get too stressed when you're in the middle of it, but also not get too worried about the next job when you're in a slow point, and enjoy it and find the opportunities to do so, which it sounds like you were doing this morning or this afternoon, playing a little bit of tennis.
Well, I was. I mean, I should be using this time constructively to write my great work, but I'm mainly just doing chores around the house and playing tennis, which is pleasant. Although something happened at the end of the match which is slightly disconcerted me, which is I was playing a guy I play very often, a good friend of mine, and at the very end, as we shook hands at the net, we did one of those handshakes where you do like a more of a kind of bro handshake, you know? So your hands are both at an angle and your thumbs are interlocked, that sort of thing, which is, very casual normally. And then completely accidentally, as I was like coming out of that handshake, I basically held onto his thumb, like I didn't loosen the grip. And I just heard this awful cracking noise, and then he sort of screamed. I basically, fortunately, I don't think I'd actually dislocated his thumb, but I'd certainly torn at a couple of tendons, and I just felt absolutely terrible, especially because I just narrowly lost the game. So I think it looked like I was exacting some sort of vengeance through a handshake.
Was that his racket arm?
It was, yeah. It was his right arm. Anyway, he said he insisted that he would be okay and made the usual platitudes about sending me the physio bill and that sort of thing. But anyway, it's funny how that sort of thing can really throw you off course. And no doubt I'll now be ruminating over that for at least the rest of the day, if not the rest of the week. But anyway, well, I'm sorry to hear about your stress. Perhaps a crossword is just the thing you need.
Perhaps.
To take your mind off it.
But before we get into it, I'm gonna lob another political ball across the
Atlantic
fence. Yeah. Across the Atlantic, because our brief when we started this was to compare the British and Canadian realities and all the quirks and quarks that are inherent in our nations and how they function. And an interesting one came up this week that sort of got me scratching my head, so I wanted to throw this over to you for thoughts.
Okay.
And it sort of falls under the heading for me of where does any sense of idealism gone in politics. So what the Liberal government did here, who, for listeners who probably aren't into the intrigues of Canadian politics, we are in a minority government, what the British call a hung parliament. And the Liberals have been propped up by the New Democratic Party, the NDP, for a long time in a sort of safety agreement, as it were, that the NDP would always vote for them in motions of confidence to keep them in power. That's lasted the better part of 3 or 4 years, but the NDP have finally said we're not going to do that anymore. And so any vote could lead to a new election. And the Liberals, in preparation for that election, last week announced possibly the most cynical move I've ever heard of. So we have a thing in Canada called the Goods and Services Tax. The GST is a national tax, and it was implemented in the 80s. It was very unpopular, but it stayed because ultimately it's a big source of revenue for the government. But the Liberals have decided to give a GST holiday that is going to cost the country $6.5 billion a year, and it's on a basket of goods. And a lot of them, like I think alcohol is included, and there's all these things, and it's this pre-Christmas pork fest that they're offering to the Canadian people in this completely cynical grab for votes in advance of this election. And it just got me thinking.
Well, a political party using tax cuts to bribe an electorate shortly before an election, surely not. I can totally understand your frustration. That's a really right-wing swing, isn't it? That's a really sort of libertarian move to
for our supposedly center-left party.
And sadly, further evidence that the sort of center-left is just in full retreat around the world, which it sadly appears to be. I was listening to a thing that was basically saying that at the next G7 meeting, it's quite possible that the UK will be the only country represented by a even vaguely centre-left party. All others, including Canada, was the prediction, by that point next year will have swung to the right. Yep. In one sense, you can understand it. I'm quite a pragmatist when it comes to politics. I totally understand that parties on the left need to do pragmatic things in order to persuade the electorate on the other side to vote for them. I mean, that's what parties on both sides do. And I totally take your point about the death of idealism, but sadly, idealism doesn't tend to get you very far in modern day politics. So I can understand that. It's, by the sounds of what you're describing, just a very cynical way of doing it.
Oh, it's brutal. I think it's going to backfire. I think it's so cynical that it's going to backfire. Yeah. Because most of the newspapers are saying this is just ludicrous.
The risk they surely run is losing their base, because they're probably calculating this isn't going to lose us any voters, but it's hopefully going to gain us some voters on the right. But it may well, by the sounds of what you're saying, end up losing them voters on the left that would probably historically have gone for them, because they'll think, well, we may as well vote for something else on the right, because they're going to do this anyway. If we're going to get right-wing policies, we may as well go full fat and vote for a right-wing government. So, that seems a bit of a shame. That feels to me, frankly, like the death throes of the Trudeau government, like the final sort of flick of the tail as a vague attempt to look like there's still life yet in it, and there probably is not, is there?
Oh no, they're fully running on fumes, at this point, and they're just throwing everything they can to try and get this thing one more mandate. And I highly doubt they're going to get it, and I almost feel that this kind of thing is more likely to push things towards a landslide victory for the Conservatives. Yeah, because we're still in a place where there could have been a minority government and power sharing, but I think at this point it's going to tip totally in their cap. And speaking of a government that has little in the way of ideals, at least as far as I can see, it's the only thing that they ever talk about is abolishing the carbon tax. Canada is a bit of an odd thing because we're such a big country that our politics got highly regionalized maybe 30 or 40 years ago. And so the Conservatives are not only the party of the right, they're the party of the left side of the country, if you look at it on a map. So it's really Western Canada, and Western Canadian interests are very much tied to natural resources, including oil.
So it's more of an east-west divide than a north-south divide that we have in this country.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Well, it sounds like an election is probably imminent for you. And it's going to be interesting to have you there to keep us posted on what's happening with that, because from the outside, although I think a lot of people here know Trudeau, they probably don't know the minutiae of Canadian politics, and it is really interesting to compare. I noticed one of the new Trump vanguard, possibly his new Secretary of State, but I can't quite remember, labelled Canada communist, which is quite a swing. But I also, that kind of label does get thrown around for Canada, which has traditionally been seen as the more left-leaning half of the North Americas. But it could well, if it, assuming it does move to the right, it will be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out with the Trump presidency. And I say interesting, but of course what I really mean is terrifying, particularly from a climate point of view.
What Canadians are most worried about right now, and what would make sense if the Trump administration started demonizing Canada, is that Canada could very well become the place where asylum seekers who are about to be deported from the US flee to. And if you're saying, well, Canada's a communist country anyway, and Canadians don't have the same interests and same values of us, it's a lot easier ethically to justify letting asylum seekers flood over your border to that country. We'll see where it happens, but there's a lot of fear-mongering right now going on. So,
well, look, I know you're under time pressure today, so we should get into the crossword, but this is interesting, meaty fodder for further conversations, which I'm sure we'll be having. So
teeing up 2025, but yes, let us get into the crossword, because we are getting rather political these last few episodes. Let's go to the crossword, because crossing words is fun.
Today's crossword, number 17,022. And scores-wise, we're 5-4 to the good, I think. And like the first set of my tennis match, I now need to consolidate on the lead and win it 6-4 before falling hopelessly in the second to a 6-1 defeat. But let's not dwell on that. I'm over it, as you can tell.
No, you've clearly let it go.
Definitely not thinking about my poor friend's thumb.
Yes, unlike letting go of your friend's thumb, which you did not do.
Which I did not do. He was like, that's never happened before. I was like, no. It is our hands are slightly different, or quite significantly different sizes, which I think was part of the problem, that his large thumb was trapped in my tiny... Anyway, let's I need to get past this, Rob. I'm haunted.
There's probably a YouTube channel of like bro shake fails.
Bro shake fails, yeah. Yeah, men with their thumbs in plaster.
Yeah.
Bemoaning their attempt to look cool. I mean, I wasn't even attempting to look cool. I was ironically attempted to look friendly, but obviously that didn't work out. If that had happened at Wimbledon, let me tell you, there'd be headlines. There would be headlines. Right. I'm going to start the timer off.
All right, let's do it.
And we are going to, as ever, attempt to get this done in 30 minutes, having not seen any of the clues. And I'm going to kick us off with 5 down, because it's a good old double worder. And it's one gives a mirror image. 7, 5.
One gives a mirror image. Well, a mirror.
A mirror. I was thinking could double go in there somewhere, but double doesn't fit any of the letter requirements. No. Let's park it.
All right, park it. What else we have? Calf length, 11 across. Is that like in terms of a skirt? Like there's a mini, a maxi, and a midi?
Oh my God. Calf length.
Yeah. Or it could relate to socks, but I've seen this with relation to skirts in crosswords before, where there's a mini, a midi, and a maxi.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because of those three, midi is the one that stands out.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want to... I think we need a letter there. How about meat-free fast food? 4 down. 6, 6.
Meat-free fast food.
So something burger?
Yeah. Veggie burger?
Veggie burger seems a good guess.
And that's VEGGIE?
Double G, yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's a good guess, which would make midi the standout.
Okay, so where is this veggie burger? Sorry, I've got like a...
It's 4 down, which gives us quite a lot of across help.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
So I'm just going to lean back in my chair. I've done something on the screen today, Rob, which is transforming my experience of of recording this podcast, which is
Tell me.
I've closed the window that shows my face, so I can only see your face, and that is such a better experience. I don't know why I haven't done it before.
So interestingly, I've had that discussion. I just did it too. Wow, it's only you. I've had this discussion with people before, because if you were in a meeting and you were sitting around a table and beside everyone that you looked at, there was a mirror. So no matter who you looked at, you were also looking at you.
Exactly.
It would be really weird. And yet we're completely tolerant of doing it. Yeah. Wow. Theo, you look so much more expensive. I can see like more of your living room.
I feel like I'm in a conversation with you entirely, rather than, as you say, with that excellent analogy, sitting opposite a mirror of myself as well, which of course is distracting because you can't help but notice yourself as you're talking. And I think it does make you more self-conscious, not just about, how you look and stuff, but I think how you're talking. I think it makes you think too much about your own words and not focus enough on... Anyway.
Yeah.
That was meant to be a sort of smaller side, and actually it's quite an interesting one because obviously Zoom calls have become such a massive part of our lives these days.
But I've got all my platforms actually automatically set that my self view is hidden.
Yeah.
But I haven't done it on Two Across yet, so here we are.
It's a whole new world.
We are moving into a new world of being risk takers, as it were, such as one across, which is a 9-letter word for a risk taker whose third last letter is a V.
Ooh.
And I think if we think of the evil Knievel type people...
Oh, a daredevil.
A daredevil.
That's a lovely guess. Yeah.
Or Eddie the Eagle.
It's definitely not double-barreled, is it?
I don't think so.
Brilliant. That is superb, Rob.
Yeah.
It gives, incidentally, a first letter of L for our one gives a mirror image, which does link very nicely to our little chat there about...
Oh, I've got it.
Go on.
So one gives a mirror image is 7 letters, 5 letters, starting with the letter L. And it is through the...
Looking glass.
Ah.
And that also further endorses MIDI.
It does endorse MIDI. I think we have a glowing endorsement for MIDI. A better clue would have been a programming language for music.
Yes, that I would have understood. I've never heard the word MIDI used in relation to the measurement of one's calf, but I take your word on it.
I think it's a very 50s kind of word.
Okay.
I don't think we use it very often. But women listeners, please write back and let us know if you have ever bought a midi skirt. Well, it could be mini, but I mean, mini's not calf length. There's no way, right? Mini is above the knees, right?
Yeah.
So midi, gotta be.
I think I can get us a quick one. 9 across is, the clue is youngsters all in one, and it's 7 letters with a 5th letter of G and a last letter of O. So I think that is Babygro.
Oh, wow.
Which has a weird spelling because there's no W on the end of it.
I've never, ever heard of that in my whole life. What Babygro.
Definitely a thing. Yeah.
Really?
It's a onesie. It's a baby onesie.
Oh, like a romper?
A romper. Yeah, exactly. That's the North American equivalent. Yeah.
I think that is the British word for it. We call it a onesie.
It's a word it's always troubled me, but mainly because of the missing W at the end. But it is definitely a thing, and it does fit there.
I like it. That would have been a crossword killer for me. So thank you for getting it.
There we go. The little culture clash coming in handy again.
Indeed.
3 down. Wipes, fingerprints, 4 letters, D blank B blank. Yeah. Do we think that's just dabs?
It must be. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah. Okay.
So 2 down, it's due for money overpaid, R space B space space space, which now in the Black Friday times, which we haven't even discussed yet, but this of course is the week of Black Friday. And in Black Friday, you're looking for a rebate from time to time.
Well done.
Yeah.
Oh, Black Friday. I don't know what there is to say about Black Friday, really, apart from, ugh.
Maybe the best thing we can do is simply not talk about it.
Yeah. Although I have to say, so it's my daughter's birthday on Saturday. It does coincide quite usefully with that, but most of the stuff that you're able to get through that. I've noticed everything does it now as well. I got an offer this morning from some company that it was something like a library or something like the sort of thing that absolutely should not be associated with this shamelessly commercial event, but nevertheless was offering me a Black Friday opportunity. And I just thought,
like dog grooming or something.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I wish I could remember what it was. Anyway, it might come back to me. Well,
I was thinking about it the other day, thinking like, how crazy is it for retailers to put the biggest sale of the year a month before the biggest consumer splash out of the year? Then I thought, well, no, of course it's genius, because the whole point of it is Black Friday is to ramp up anxiety that you're missing deals. There's things you should have. Like, I'm a musician, for instance, right? And a lot of the software for music, like plugins, they will have Black Friday sales, and they all email you and say it's our amazing sale, and the thing that used to cost $100 now costs 20. You've got to get it. You got to get it.
Yeah.
But the whole point is it's to lure you into buying a bunch of crap that you don't need.
Yeah, completely.
And so that's what they're doing. They're creating that anxiety, and then you just, I got to do something, and then you go and impulsively buy a bunch of crap.
This opportunity will never come round again. I must buy this USB stick for
exactly
half the normal price.
All right.
I noticed The Guardian is also offering a Black Friday deal, of course.
By the way, excellent South Park episode on Black Friday and the console wars between Xbox and PlayStation, which is well worth the watch. We happened upon it in a hotel room this summer when I was traveling with my kids, which I probably shouldn't have watched with them because it was very crass, but it's really funny. It includes Bill Gates and the head of Sony Corporation getting into a knife fight to the death, where Bill Gates reveals his gangland tattoos when he takes his shirt off.
Excellent. I like the sound of that. I haven't seen South Park in way too long, so
me neither.
I may re-immerse myself through the medium of that episode. 6 down, full of excitement. 6-6.
Yeah. Full of excitement.
It's hyphenated.
I think this is going to be a whimsical British word.
I totally
like
agree.
daring do or those kinds of things.
It's got that vibe about it, hasn't it?
Oh, here you go. Here you go, Theo. We've got to take this one. It is 7 down, and it's an anagram.
But it's a mega anagram.
It's a mega anagram, but I think, Theo, I'm leaving this one to you, my friend.
Oh, no.
It is an anagram of the following words. I forgot, he had, and the clue is supposed cure for a hangover.
I've got it.
Yep.
And I've tried this many times and it's never worked.
So Zeus, you've had a gnaw on his fur.
Oh, I'm not sure I'd gnaw on his fur, bless him. He's a bit smelly on occasion. But it is, of course, hair of the dog.
Yes, I'm picturing you like kneeling on the carpet one morning, completely hungover in your boxer shorts, having a gnaw on Zeus's pelt.
Yeah. I mean, at least it would distract me. This is probably a top. I think we should maybe include this in our Christmas episode because it would be apropos. But the subject of alcohol consumption and hangovers, we've touched on it before, but it does take on a marked difference when you're in your middle years with children.
My gosh.
It's a very interesting phenomenon, and I have many thoughts and anecdotes to share on it. Anyway.
We shall have time for our Christmas spectacular.
We will. We will mull that one. We will mull that one over a glass of
mulled wine. Ooh, let's see if we can hook that up.
I do think we should. I think we should have a proper Christmas episode whilst wearing Christmas hats. And my son is currently, bless him, preparing for his school Christmas concert.
Oh, nice.
Which is lovely and very sweet. But he's been singing the songs at home in practice. And one of them, a couple of them are the usual stuff about following stars to Bethlehem and donkeys and whatever. But one of them is a really, really depressing sort of American song about leaving milk and cookies for Santa by the tree.
Oh, God.
And he just keeps singing, milk and cookies, milk and cookies. I was like, cookies? What are you talking about, boy? Biscuits! And anyway, it's whiskey and a mince pie. You don't leave milk and cookies. Goodness me.
So that's what with us, it was a glass of wine and a mince pie.
Oh, I like that. That's good. Yeah. Santa definitely would enjoy that combination at roughly about 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Come on, we need to get going. We're nearly halfway.
21 across. Let's get to the bottom. Just in following the Zeus theme. Now that his fur's been gnawed off. One's sometimes attached to a pet. So one is sometimes attached to a pet. It's 3 letters, 6 letters. The third letter of the first word is a G, which suggests that could be a dog.
And I think the second word, I assume, is a collar.
So it's something that could also be attached to a priest.
Indeed. In either a sadomasochistic or just everyday way. Actually, that's a rather unfortunately topical joke to make, because I don't know if you've read about the travails of our Archbishop of Canterbury.
Oh, no.
Who's had to resign because he essentially shielded a notorious sex offender for many, many years.
Oh, okay. I thought you were about to say that he was the...
No, it wasn't him himself who was perpetrating the crimes, but he was not, I don't know if protecting is the right word, but he was certainly not doing as much as he could to bring to light the crimes of a notorious paedophile who was in the Church of England. But anyway, there's a very, very good piece in Private Eye about it, by the way, written by Ian Hislop, if anybody is interested, in which he encountered the aforementioned Archbishop at a social event just a day after he'd handed in his resignation. Upbraided him, shall we say, for daring to show his face in such a way so soon after such a scandal. But anyway, let's move on. 10 across. Add water. 8 letters. Third letter R.
Yeah.
Penultimate letter T.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking hydrate something, but doesn't work.
Because it's space R. So I did look at that. I feel like we need more letters before we can get up to that, but I think we can get a few. Indirectly, we got to move around the bottom right and start doing some maneuvering. So 18 down is a missile store, which is 4 letters long, ending in O. But of course, I thought if it was longer, it could be, like Congress, where Ukraine goes to shop for missiles.
Oh, I see. Yes, I'll take one of your large tridents and
an attack'em and
a couple of attack'ems. I do like that they're called attack'ems. That's quite
I know.
Attack'ems.
Yeah.
Very say what you see.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So that's a silo, do we assume?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then 19 across is winding someone up. Mm-hmm. And the someone is in brackets, so could be more winding up than winding someone up. But it's 7 letters, third letter D, fifth letter I.
Usually when you do this, it refers to the someone, so it's the act of sort of winding a person up.
Which is, go on.
I don't know it.
Oh, you don't? Sorry. I thought you had it.
We might have a few here, Theo. So for belt with a place for valuables, it's 14 across. It's 6 letters long. It is 3 spaces and then a B and then a space and then a G. We would call this a fanny pack in North America, or at least the Americans would call it a fanny pack. But
oh, it's our good old friend, the bum bag.
I thought it would be. See, that is a funny Americanism versus Britishism, because fanny means something very different in the UK than it does in the United States.
I always used to giggle when we came to America as kids and they talked about sit on your fannies.
Yeah, move your fanny, kid. What?
I wear it at the back, tittering away.
Yeah.
And my dad would be like, oh, come on. Oh, fanny pack.
So good.
Brilliant. So
17 across, involving the arts. Theo, for you, 8 letters long, third last letter R, last letter L.
So my guess for that would be cultural.
Mm-hmm. I think I would agree with that guess.
Yes.
So that gives us one maybe awkward or cool, which is an 8-letter word, which has a second letter of U, a fourth letter of T, and a last letter of R.
One may be awkward or cool.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like teenager,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work.
No.
Oh no, I think we might need another letter. Can we get one from 20 across? Encounters, 5 letters, third letter E, fifth letter S.
Yes.
Like meets.
Well, yeah, I thought that immediately, but yeah, I guess that fits.
I think
For
it
some
works.
reason, I was looking at it and was like, yeah, but the second letter, the third letter's got to be an A. But of course, no, that's meets like.
This one may be awkward or cool though. So now we have all the letters we're going to get. Blank U, blank T, blank M, blank R.
Customer.
Oh, Rob. That is an excellent get.
It's a good clue too. It's a that's a very good little. Thank you. Well done, crossword setter.
Yeah, the cool customer. That's really nice. That's really good crosswording, Rob.
Thank you.
Tip of the cap.
Luckily, we had a lot of letters.
Okay, I've got a quick one. I think 15 down, big stick, 6 letters, second letter U, final letter L.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be a cudgel?
Ooh, nice one. I'm just going to make it sound like I knew what that one was. Oh, yeah, no, totally. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Cudgel is the sort of thing I associate with Bill Sikes in Oliver. You know,
yes.
He like carries around this big club.
Yeah. Remember at Blackjack, that weird little thing in Spy versus Spy in Mad Magazine? They had to have this. I never knew what one of those things was. Like a blackjack, it looked like a little sack on a thing that you would just sort of whack someone with, but I never understood how that was going to do any damage.
Interesting. Like a hammer.
Any listeners?
You know, that's a weird one. In athletics, they call it the hammer throw. But the thing couldn't look any less like a hammer if it tried. It's basically a ball on the end of a piece of wire.
Yes, correct.
You know? Anyway, that's what I'm picturing there from your description.
No, it's smaller. I'm going to look it up.
Smaller.
And if any listeners have a blackjack at home alongside your brass knuckles and nunchucks, you could write in and tell us exactly what a blackjack is and how it can do someone damage. Theo, we've got winding someone up now, 19 across, has a third letter of D, and then it's space, and then it's I-N-G.
Yeah, it's got to be I-N-G, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. It's I space G. Sorry, I just threw the N in there. But so it's got to be something like either D-L-I-N-G or D-J-I-N-G, like nudging or I don't know. Because it's like needling someone, but that's not going to fit.
Needling's a good guess. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, nudging or sledging is a thing in sport, but that's
is
not.
It?
That doesn't fit.
No.
Yeah, they do it in cricket a lot, where they're trash talking people.
What time check here? How
8 minutes and 50 seconds.
So we're in the zone of tolerance, but we don't have oodles of time. Oodling could fit.
Oodling, yeah.
No, there's no way that's a word.
No. But something ling. I like the ling.
Yeah, I think so, eh?
This is annoying. We're going to have to get 6 down, which is full of excitement.
Let's look at 6. Let's get a few that we can get before hitting that. Because intense longing, 16 across, is 4 letters long, and it has a penultimate letter of H. An intense longing.
Oh.
It's a good word, actually. I do know what it is.
Oh, go on.
But it makes the H it's not pronounced in any way how it's spelt, because it ends up being a hard sound, even though there's a C before the H.
Oh, an ache. Yes, very good. I ache with longing for him.
Yes.
Reader.
I ache for her.
Yes.
It's like the same person that would use the word ardent to describe their passion.
Ardent, yes. Exactly that, yes. More people should do.
I know.
That gives us one further letter in full of excitement, which is the second word now has the second letter of A.
Yes.
But, yeah, I'm still not seeing it. Should we go...
13 across, less sophisticated, which is space F as in Francis, space R. It would probably be ER, because if it's less or more, it's generally less sophisticated. So space F space potentially E and then R.
Because you think simpler, don't you?
Yeah.
But that doesn't work with our hair of the dog.
Could it be dafter? But that's not really sophisticated. That's just...
What about 8 across, insensitive, 5 letters, third letter A. Brash?
No, because then it makes an H as the third letter of one down, and I think I might know what one down is.
Take issue with.
Yeah.
8 letters beginning with D.
Penultimate letter of E, and I think that may be to disagree.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, no, I think that's a...
Ooh, and I think that gets us 10 across. I think that G from disagree, which now becomes the fourth last letter of add water, which now has a third letter of R, a fifth letter of G.
Oh, irrigate. Yeah.
Which isn't great, like add water. I mean, I guess.
So then if it's not brash...
No, because it ends in an S now. It's space A space S. Insensitive. Ooh, could it be crass?
Yes, it could certainly be crass, which gives our...
That's a good word.
It is a good word. Oh, so crass. It's quite onomatopoeic, I think. That
It is.
S, crass. You know, like it's hissing like a snake. Full of excitement, 6.
Yes.
Second letter C, fourth letter I, and we have 5 minutes left to get this and 2 others.
Yes, correct. For listeners, full of excitement is 6, as Theo said. First word, second letter C, fourth letter I. Second word, second letter A, last letter D. And then we have less sophisticated, space F, space ER. And then we
Got to be dafter.
You think so, eh?
Which is a weird word.
It
but
is a weird word.
Let's pen it in because
Okay.
I think we need letters on this full of excitement.
And then we have 19 across, which is winding someone up, and it's space D space ING. Winding someone up is both kind of getting them agitated, but can it also be...
Oh, I think I've got it, Rob.
What is it?
Is it kidding?
Yeah, that's what I thought, because if you're winding someone up is also sort of bullshitting someone.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Just kidding.
Just kidding, Mac.
That reminds me of the line from the last episode of That Man Can't Hold His Liquor. Which still makes me laugh. It's a classic kind of North American
It is a classic
expression.
Of a certain era.
Yeah, someone with a large moustache would
exactly.
have to say something like that. Right, full of excitement then, 6. So if we're going kidding and if we're going dafter, we now have full of excitement is blank C, blank I, blank D, blank, that's the first word, blank A, blank K, blank D is the second word.
Oh, I think I've got it, and dafter's wrong.
Okay.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think it would, for instance, if you would describe like Jumanji or a movie like that, you might describe it as this. Or a Schwarzenegger movie.
Action-packed. Yes. Very good.
Yeah.
That's very good. Okay.
Oh, so it must be, I think I know what 13 across, and this is a word that is a very British word as well and would not at all be understandable to the North American ear.
Are you going to say NAFTA or NAFA?
NAFR, yeah.
NAFA, yes, perfect.
Yeah, something's naff.
Yes, absolutely, that works. That definitely works. And I think that is us. So,
das ist alles.
Das ist alles. Do we have any doubts, quibbles?
It's my crossword today. If I get anything wrong, then we're done.
So just to remind listeners, we have a new rule because we've had a few situations where we've put words in spelt differently. That the new rule is whoever does the intro on the episode has essentially the record version of the crossword. So it is their spellings that will be judged.
So today it's my spellings, but I think all of our words are pretty darn straightforward.
Okay.
So the only one that could be, I'd say NAFR is sort of, but I don't see anything else that fits. And I'm pretty sure that's good. We both thought it. So I think groupthink certainly confirms that it must be correct.
I can't think of another word that would fit there apart from maybe nifter, but that's not really a thing.
No.
And I think NAFA works. My feeling is that the crossword setter just had to fit something in there.
I said, that's naff, but it'll...
Yeah, whatever. That'll do.
Yeah.
Okay, should we do a check all?
Let's do a check all.
And we are, drum roll, please.
Dun, dun, dun.
All correct.
Lovely. And I'm trying to all correct mine, but...
Yeah, check all. That will tell you if there's any letters wrong. And there are not. Oh, that's satisfying, Rob.
Oh, it is. We have a cushion now, Theo. We have a two-match cushion, which
6-4. Yeah.
Are we 6-4, eh? Yeah, that's not so bad.
6-4. This is our 10th episode of the second series, whatever it is.
Second series, yeah. Second.
That's, yeah.
Crosswords done, that was fun. Now let's have a chat.
Now, by way of final notes, I did say last time I would report back on the Farmers' March from last week.
And I did read about it in The Economist. They had a little thing on it.
Yeah. So it's definitely not a black and white issue, I would say. I think there's lots of disagreement about the figures involved and the number of farms that will actually be affected. And anyway, the march itself was very well attended. I think there were about 20,000 people there. Lots of muddy boots and barber jackets on show, as you can imagine.
Where did you march?
We marched at Whitehall, so just outside Downing Street, basically, by the Cenotaph, which is a very open street that is often the focus of demonstrations because it's so close to Parliament. And actually, the plan was for it to be a march, but it turned out there were so many people there that they couldn't actually march. So everyone just stood in a spot in the rain listening to some speakers. And what was interesting to me was, as someone on the more kind of centre-left of the political spectrum, this is a cause that has been largely taken up by political parties on the right. And it slightly stuck in my craw to see the leaders of the Reform UK party, formerly UKIP, clambering onto tractors in their flat caps and waving up vote reform signs. And that left a sour taste. You thought, well, please don't ruin this bit by turning it into a kind of a right-wing cause, because I don't think it is, actually. I think it's much more... Well, I was certainly there to show my support for genuine farmers and people who are struggling in a oft forgotten about sector of our economy. So, yeah, it's been taken up by individuals such as Jeremy Clarkson, who is very outspoken on the issue and is, of course, himself very associated with the right-wing press. And yeah, there were some really good speakers. The best speakers were, of course, the farmers themselves, who just spoke with real kind of passion and said, this will mean we can't pass our farms on to our children.
Yeah.
And then there was a kind of parade of children on toy tractors pedalling their way around Parliament Square, which I thought was a very evocative image and made the point very eloquently. Myself having once been one of those children on a pedal tractor in my youth. So, yeah, I found it very interesting. I don't know quite what I think about the issue entirely. I think they have set the threshold a bit low. I think they should raise it. But I also think, as I said last week, it's inarguable they need to close this tax loophole whereby land is getting bought up as a tax dodge, because that in itself is driving up land values, and that's creating a lot of the problem that, as I say, genuine small family farmers are now going to face, whereby they're asset rich but cash poor.
And the UK also the UK is in a sort of nationwide housing crunch, right? So that more large tracts of land that are in private hands for investment purposes. I mean, I'm not talking about farmers, but I'm talking about the other case of rich people using it as a tax dodge.
Yeah.
You know, the less that's available for building and doing other things. And I know that's a classic issue in the UK.
Yeah. Oh, it is absolutely a classic issue. And like so many other places, our housing crisis is spiraling just so far out of control now. And it's difficult to see how that is resolved, but it's certainly not going to be resolved in a single policy. It's going to be resolved through a number of different policies, which are hopefully going to take the heat out of the market a little bit and just give people on ordinary salaries a chance. Because what are the implications for society if people earning, regular salaries can't afford to get onto the housing ladder unless they have significant help from their parents or grandparents. That in itself is a very, very problematic situation that is, as I say, it's not going to get solved overnight, but there has to be a concerted political effort to resolve it in the long term. But anyway, I digress. It was mainly to say it was an interesting day. I got very wet. I was glad I went, but I also hope that the campaign in the long term is carried by the farmers themselves and not by the kind of right-wing wealthy individuals who may otherwise, I think, tarnish the message somewhat. So, yeah.
And who are likely bankrolling the Reform Party in the background to promote their interests, much as they do many right-wing causes.
Do you ever get the feeling, this is a bit of a tangent again, Rob, but just as a sort of closing thought, I sometimes think about the world and about society as being divided between people who essentially just have the means or to earn enormous amounts of money from doing very, very little, and those who work incredibly hard to earn relatively small amounts of money, usually to the benefit of those aforementioned individuals who are making huge amounts of money. And I find myself questioning why is that the situation? And could we not be doing something in our schools to share the secret with more people of how to acquire? Because actually, a lot of people who work in the city seem to me to spend the majority of their time essentially gambling. They're gambling with large amounts of money, but the margins they're making are often enormous because they're starting with a huge pot to begin with. Anyway, I just wonder if there's more that can be done at a kind of education level to empower people who are, lower down that food chain to, as I say, sort of share with them the secrets of mass wealth.
The secrets, it's pretty clear. The secret is start with money. And you said it before. I mean, the fact that more and more people have to give money to their kids or their grandchildren to allow them to get a sort of foot on the property ladder or whatever it is to sort of get themselves established. And that this is something that people have been talking about for a while. I mean, I remember reading the famous French economist Thomas Piketty, who's a favorite of the left, wrote in his sort of seminal work, Capital in the 21st Century, that we're heading towards becoming an inheritance society, much like you read in sort of Victorian books about Mr. Bingley has an income of £500. And you're sort of like, how was he endowed with this income? Like, how did that occur? Like, you can understand if he had a job somewhere and that's what he made a year. But no. The income is basically the rent he gets off all of his property in a year and allows him to sort of fop about or do whatever.
That is the worry, isn't it? That we're regressing back to a society that is entirely dependent on inherited wealth rather than kind of meritocratically accrued wealth. And I don't quite know why that has been allowed to happen. I haven't read the Piketty book. I probably should.
It's dense.
Yes, that's what put me off. I have to say.
It's insanely dense, and it could use a good executive summary, to be honest. But it's a lot of pages to get to that sort of main conclusion.
But I think that there is a sort of secret to wealth, which is, yes, to start with wealth in the first place, but also to get into that sort of mindset of unshackling yourself from the guilt that comes with accruing wealth, because I think that does genuinely prevent a lot of people from doing it, and rightly so. But you have to be sort of almost shameless about it. I mean, as so many of these headline-making billionaires seem to be, including James Dyson, who we talked about a little bit in the last episode in relation to the farmers' protest. But the idea that you sort of unapologetically just go after vast amounts of money as an end in itself.
Yep.
But what seems to not be happening these days compared to the Victorian societies, I'm not sure that kind of philanthropic side is happening, because at least I mean, yes, the Victorians were, didn't have a welfare state and they didn't have many of the public institutions that we do today, but they did have, there was an expectation, I think, among the wealthier classes that a lot of that wealth would be redistributed to good causes, and I don't think that expectation is there anymore.
Look at London's parks. That's entirely the legacy. Every single one of South London's parks has a manor house in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Because it was some rich person donated it finally to the borough, and it became a park for everyone.
Our local park being a prime example, Brockwell.
You have Gates and you have people like that, and Warren Buffett, who famously said that you want to leave your children enough money that they can do anything, but not enough money that they can do nothing.
Yes. Yeah.
Which always stuck in my head. But it's, unfortunately, I doubt we're going to solve it in the next 5 minutes.
No. Anyway, it just increasingly is something that's on my mind. And I don't think there is a solution.
I would argue in many countries it's going to get worse. Certainly in the US it's going to get worse, because all the brakes are going to come off, and the Musks of the world are going to have nothing in their path to stop them from accumulating ever greater amounts of wealth. For me, there's an ethical dimension to it, that capitalism allows people to accumulate large amounts of money, but it also has a moral underpinning that justifies it. So interestingly, Adam Smith, the father of modern economics, he both justified, the division of labor, and he was the prophet of industrialization and how it could create masses of wealth. But he also wrote the theory of moral sentiments. He was a moralist and an economist, and back in the day, the two were together. And so there was a normative framework that was, well, what should you do as a person, and not just what can you do as a person? Whereas modern right-wing economics has taken the first part, what can you do, what can you achieve, what wealth can you accrue, without thinking of your responsibilities beside that. And that's where you look at people like the billionaires of the world, the Bezoses and so forth, who have earnings on an annual basis that is several million times what their frontline employees earn, and who refuse to accept or to acknowledge the fact that it's those people that are creating that wealth. They're creating it. Now, they say, well, those people are interchangeable. No Tom, Dick, Harry, Sally, or whatever is of any particular importance, because I could just switch them out. Ergo, they get whatever the market pays for them, and I get all of the surplus. And that is justified because I'm pursuing my self-interest. And Adam Smith told us that pursuing your self-interest is what leads to greater wealth for everybody. And so they see it as a moral justification, but they're forgetting the other side of the equation, which is what is actually just, for lack of a better word. And that sounds very gauche and very naive, such a word. But until we start having those discussions again, we're going to head further and further to greater stratospheres of accumulated wealth in fewer and fewer hands.
Which implies that the revolutions of this century are going to be massive. And when they do come, which inevitably they will, if this divide keeps growing wider, they could make sort of France and Russia look like tea parties, because when that global mass finally reaches the point of enough, which, and with you chuck kind of climate factors into that, and the growing gulf between the developing world and elsewhere, the ramifications of all of this are huge. And if we don't take steps to address this now and close this gap, everybody in the long term suffers. Is the point, is it not?
Absolutely. But the potential, you said the potential to close it out, the potential for revolution just increases and gets larger. But so prior to that, just the potential for despotism.
Well, yes.
As people try to keep a lid on it, and to do so have to employ ever more egregious means. And that's, I think, why so many people see Russia as such an existential threat, because it's this clear and present demonstration of big man politics ruling a country with an iron fist and crushing dissent, which is a model for a period to keep a lid on this kind of stuff, and one that others, if it's proven to be successful, may emulate. And that, I think, is the biggest concern, and why so many people feel that we have so much skin in the game in Ukraine and things like that. But Jesus, we've really taken it into
we've gone heavy, Rob. We've gone heavy.
Sorry, listeners, next week it's all fart jokes.
Wall to wall, absolute wall to wall fart jokes. Rob, thanks for your company as always, and yes, we will check in again next week.
You've been listening to Two Across. If you like what you've been listening to, we would greatly appreciate a like, subscribe, follow, or to share it with your friends. That helps us to get the crossword and the podcast in front of more ears. Until we see you, have a good week, and speak again.